We're now on Daf Chav Chesamid Beis, and it's very odd for a master to borrow money from his slave. It's very unusual for a master to appoint his own slave as the apotropos, who will oversee all of his possessions. The Eved is wearing tefillin. He's not chayiv in tefillin. He has the same status as an isha, and tefillin is his man grama. He's potter, but he wanted to take it on his own initiative. And shall we say that since again this is not normal behavior of an Eved in front of his adon, it must prove something. The Eved got called up to the Torah, and they read 3 psukim. Is in all the cases here, this is not ample proof to establish that this fellow is not an Eved. It's possible for an Eved to study Torah, and you cannot prove that he was a Ben Chorin and he received a get shichur from his master based on the fact that he's learning Torah. So let's go back to again, refresh our memories. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi on Amud Aleph had established that you're not allowed to teach your son Torah. And based on that, we can accept the testimony in our Mishnah that this fellow is a Kohen and exclude the possibility that he's an Eved because he came out of the school, walked out of the cheder. So the Gemara is going to prove now that an Eved is allowed to learn Torah, because otherwise we would have to assume that if under the tutelage of his master, the Eved went to a school under the master sent him to a Beit Sefer and he was learning Torah there. We're going to have to, and that's not a proof that he was Meshacher him. It means that an Eved is allowed to learn Torah. So how can you prove to me that the man about which we were accepting the child's testimony is definitely a Kohen, but not an Eved? Maybe he's an Eved. So Gemara answers, Hasam the Ikre Eved Midaito. The case where we allow the Eved to go to school and study Torah, that's when he was self-motivated. Kika Amrina, and our Mishnah is talking about a case to Konoig a Minag Banim. He took him into the school as if he were a student in the school. It's not a case where the Eved took the initiative. If the Eved took the initiative, that doesn't prove a thing. But if the Adon, the master, the Rav, he sent this fellow to school, that proves that he's not an Eved. He would not send an Eved to a Jewish school. Now the Gemara goes back to the din of Mishnah, and a person is believed to testify that this person is a Kohen. Litbol lechol b'truma. So he can now be tovel and eat truma. That's what this aide who was a katan is testifying. So Gemara clarifies this. How can we believe an aide who is chilas of the paslus? It must be that we're dealing with a d'Rabbanan. What do you mean a d'Rabbanan? We're dealing with truma. And Gemara answers truma d'Rabbanan, which means truma tzirokos or kitnios or peros elon minus tirosh v'yitzar according to the Rambam. It's d'Rabbanan, and the Rabbanan heim amru v'heim amru. They were making. The Mishnah says, Imanu alagorin. I'll testify that as I was a child, this person collected his segment, his portion of truma in the granary when they divided up the truma. Once again, the Gemara asks for Dilma Evid Kohenu. Maybe he's the Evid of a Kohen, Kinyan Kaspo, and therefore he's allowed to eat truma, but it doesn't prove that he's a Yisrael. I'm sorry, it doesn't prove that he's a Kohen. Tanan, Kimani Omerein Cholkin Truma Lievid Elim Kain Rabo Imo, who answers that they would only give a person who's an Evid Truma, they don't divide up, if his Rav was with him. And we'll see why. In the absence of his Rav, then he cannot collect Truma. Keditanya, as we learned in a Brisa. Okay, the Masechet gives us a little background to this Brisa. We're talking about a Kohenes and a Shivcha, who both gave birth at the same time in a hospital. And we don't know the identity. There was a mix-up in the hospital, in the ward, where the women after birth, they go into that ward, or they bring the children into that, the babies into that ward, and there's a mix-up. This child, male child, let's say, is either an Eved or he's a Kohen. So the Brisa says, "Ein cholkin truma li'eved elim kain rabo imo." And that's Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. Just 1 second. What's it going to? Just give me a minute. Maybe from Rabbi Yossi, I'll understand Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yossi Omer Yachol Hu Yishayo Marmi Manavsha, right? Him Kohen needs to newly feel Atzmi. Him Evid Kohen needs to newly feel Rab. So somehow I'm just missing one point here. In this Brisa, we're assuming that it's Ein Rabo Imo. How do we know that? I'm tempted to think that according to the logic of this Gemara, since we don't know whether he's a Kohen or an Eved, therefore by definition, it's like Ein Rabo Imo. Oh no, yeah. Let me say it even better than that. Even if Rabbo was there in the granary, what could the Rabbo say? Give him truma? Maybe he's not a Kohen, maybe he's an Eved. So for all intents and purposes, this is like Ein Rabbo Imo. And Rabbi Yehuda nevertheless says, and therefore Rabbi Yehuda insists that Ein Cholkin. It's Ein Rabbo Imo. We have to be definite about it. We need his master to testify. His master can't testify. And therefore, we're not going to give him truma. But Rabbi Yossi says, forget about Rabbo Imo. I don't need Rabbo Imo. Kibimanov Shach, he's a Kohen. Kibimanov Shach, he gets truma. Either he gets truma as a Kohen, or he gets truma as an Eved of a Kohen in Kinyan Kaspa. So what is the machlokas? So Gemara analyzes. If they saw truma being divvied up, then they would assume he's a Kohen kosher. And now in this case, Rabbi Yehuda cannot allow this individual, so Safek Kohen, Suffolk Eved, to receive Truma. Because in the eyes of the spectator, if he received Truma, then we know that he's a Kohen Miyuchas. And that's called Mailim B'Truma Mitruma Liyuchsin. So therefore, if we have a suffix as to what the status of this person is, and we're going to have to be machmir in all dini yuchsin, we're not going to allow him to marry a kocha basishal kshera because that's suffix, then we can't give him truma, because if we give him truma, then people are going to think that he's a kohen miyuchas, because Rabbi Yehuda holds mailim mitruma lekuna. So that's in the area of the location of Rabbi Yehuda. They never saw truma as a criterion to prove and establish that he's miyuchas. So therefore, we can apply the Miman of Shach, allow this individual who's either an Eved or a Kohen to get the truma, Eved that's owned by a Kohen, or a Kohen himself to get the truma, because lo ayamayla be truma liyuchsin. There's no fear that the spectator will assume, hey, they're giving him truma. It must mean that he's a kohen kosher. Tanya, Rabbi Loza, Rabbi Yossi, I never went down this path to testify about a person that they gave him truma to eat. But pamachas hayadati, and the one time that for some reason he was pressured to testify is helu evid lekuna alpi. So I guess he got stuck in the makomo shel Rabbi Yossi, where they were malami truma lekahuna, and it turns out that he was an evid. So the Gemara says this can't be. Did you ever hear a story and you say, no, it couldn't have happened? That's what we see here. Because Hashem Abahem Tishal Tzadim Kodesh Baruch Mevi Tekol Yodim Tzadikim Asmul Kolchki. Right, to have the whole case there, including of Chamoro Shal Pinchas Ben Yair, who wouldn't eat the mai. The Herstamaisa, a donkey that doesn't eat the mai. Very, very holy donkey. So Ena Kodesh Baruch Hu Mevi Takol Al Yidei Tzadikim. So how could it be that Rabbi Lazar says that as a result of my testimony, they will mila someone to Yuchsin to be a Kohen Kosher, and then whatever happened happened. Elo bikshu lahalos Eved Kahuna alpi. It wasn't that they actually took an Eved and they made him into a Kohen, but they were thinking of doing it. And Rabbi Loza said, I shouldn't have gotten involved from the start. I should realize that, they make erroneous calculations and conclusions. So now the Gemara wants to know, okay, fine. They didn't actually make him into a Kohen. But still, they almost did so. I mean, based on the testimony of a tzaddik. The Gemara answers, Chaza bi Asrei de Rabbi Yossi. Right, when he testified that he saw the Eved getting a portion of the Truma in the Beis HaGoren, it was in Rabbi Yossi's Gegen, Rabbi Yossi's shtetl. And there they were cholek Truma to an Eved. And why? Because lo mailin mi Truma liyuchs. Now what happened? Where did the fashla happen? That they were thinking of being mala him to yuchsin. It couldn't have been in Rabbi Yossi's Gegen because there ain't mala mi Truma liyuchsin. But rather also v'asid favor. Even though the story took place in Rabbi Yossi's area, in his location, but the testimony was given in another city, which was under the jurisdiction of Rabbi Yehuda. And there are Maila Mitruma Yuchs. So that's why they almost got to the point where they were Mila Mitrumalios. The Mishnah says, if he testifies that he saw in his childhood, that's the place, a field where it was Necher Shabo Kever, and we're afraid of a small bone, Kisaora, size of a kernel of barley. My timer, why would they believe a gadol on that which he saw as a katan, to say that this is a beis hapras? And the more answer is beis hapras derabbanan. And again, we go through the same heimamru v'heimamru over and over again in each one of these 5 cases. It's a derabbanan, and therefore the Rabbanan said we could be lenient. And I think this has to do with the fact that no, just the opposite. The sod is a rishus hayochid, sveiko tame. I would say the following: that the sod has a cheskes tara, and okay, the corpse never is dispersed, the bones all over the sod, but who says that there's an etzem hametame of an etzem kisaora dafka in the place where he went? Now, the Gemara is going to show now that there are leniencies with regard to Beis HaPras, and that proves our underlying premise to be true, that Beis HaPras is all the Rabbanan. He's allowed to bend down, and presumably if it's even a Kohen. All right, see, he says in the name of the mission Olos Perkid Ches that we're talking about someone who's going to be makar of his Korban Pesach. And menapeach, what does menapeach mean? As he's bound, he's bending down, he blows in front of him. He walks, he blows and walks down the path that he made through the blowing. And therefore, he knows as he's walking through that he's not stepping on an etzem kisor. Rabbi Yehuda bar Ami mishmei Rabbi Yehuda amar beis hapras shenidash tohar. Now, I don't know exactly how long you have to wait until you can establish that it's nidras or nidash. In the Gemara's language, nidash, in the Hebrew translation, it's nidras. I don't know. We wait a month. I don't know how long we wait. My timer, she efshali etzem kisora shon nidash bereg. Any significant size, the minimum size for Kabbalah's tomb of an etzem was already crushed by the people walking, trouncing through that area. And all this is proving that Tumas Beis HaPras is Drabban. Weiter, Adkan or Yinuboim b'Shabbos, Hasavat Tchum Drabban, the whole enterprise of an Isa Tchum to go out more than 2,000 amma beyond these city limits on Shabbos, that's the Rabbanan. And this is a machlokes in Erevin Daf Nun Aleph between Rabbi Akiva and the Chachamim. Also appears in Sota and Daf Lamed Omid Beis, whether or not Tchumen is Dorais. However, the Einemon Lomar Derech Haya Ploni B'Makom Zeh, or Maimedu Mispid Haya Makom. So that's already Dini Mominos, my timer, Lafuki Mimonu Lo Mafkinon. Here we need Edis Doraisa. And it was Chilasa B'Psul, he saw it as a katan. Ton Rabbanan Nemanatino Lomar Kach, Omar Li Abba, Mishpacha Zu, Tahora, Mishpacha Zu Tmeya. And the Gemara is going to change this because it doesn't make sense to talk about Tahora or Tmeya and a Mishpacha, but it really means Kshera or Psula. So he knows as a katan that the rumor had it that this person was the son of an illegitimate marriage. Affecting more Tahor Tmei Asal Kedaitach. Well, what does Tahor Tmei have to do with Yuchsin? Ella Mishpacha Zug Shera Mishpacha Zug Psula. He's testifying that there was someone possible who got married in this family, married into that family. Now the Brisa says the following. Vishalchalnu b'ktsata. We don't know what that means. The Gemara is going to try to interpret it. Shall bas ploni leploni. Vaita. He can testify. Shayinu molichim chala umatanos leploni kohen. We gave matnas kahuna of chala and other matnas kahuna to such and such a kohen. And based on this edus, we can make him into a kohen. Al yidei atzmo aval lo al yidei acher. In other words, when I was a child, my father would send me to this Kohen to deliver, not Shalat Manos, but to deliver Matnas Kahuna or Chal. However, we're not going to trust this person to testify that as a child, he was Molech Chal Matanas Al Yidei Acher. I'm not exactly sure what Al Yidei Acher means. It seems to me that what's going on is that as a katan, second Al Yidei Atzmo. I just want to finish the parak. I'm running to the finish line. So tomorrow, Mitzvah, we can start a new parak. So if you can hang in there for another 5 minutes, I just got. This always happens to me when I'm in a rush. I get stuck. So again, if it's al yidei atzmo, that his father sent him to bring the matkanos, then he can testify. But lo al yidei acher, oh, I see. I got it now. Either he himself, as a katan, brought the matanos to the Kohen, then he's believed, but to testify that he saw others bringing matanos to this Kohen, on that he cannot testify. So again, if a Jewish katan saw a testimony, that's one thing. But if he was a guy and then he became a ger, or he was an Evan and he got to get shikra and then he became a ger, he's not believed to testify that which he saw and witnessed as a guy or as an Evan. So again, so the Gemara asks Rabbi Yochanan and Broka, hey. Rabbi Yochanan Broka expresses his dissenting opinion on which case. Ilema Seifa, if it's a case of Dini Mominos, where the child, as a child, he knows that this guy had a derech to plow through the fields, is Afuki Mamono, who he's being Motzi Mamiches Kaso, and he's Chilasa B'Psuli was a Katan. Certainly, Rabbi Yochanan Broka would not argue against the premise that he's completely disqualified for testimony. Ella Rachel. Let's go back to the Rachel. Let's say he was a guy and he became a ger. He was an Evid and he became a ger after Shichrur. Is Kulon im Hoyo v'kocham is Gair Evid Nisachur. Ein them one Rabbi Yochanan Broka and nema b'may k'mo miflagi. Tanakamas overcame the overkocham lavi dayik. You want to rely on like an expert witness and testify, right? Let's go back to the ratio for a split second. That they brought him matnas kahuna. So you know what? He was a guy then. What does he know about matnas kahuna? Was he really medayik? Was he careful, meticulously to watch, all the details and know if exactly it was true, it wasn't true? Rabbi Yochanan Broka Sover came to the Daite Ligure, made the Kavitak. He's already planning to be Miskaya. I mean, that's the subject that we're talking about. And that which he saw as a guy, he watched it very carefully because he knew, he was in Ulpan Fagarium, which, by the way, could be a 12-month period of time. So during that period of time, he was very makpid to watch carefully because he knew that later on they're relying on him to testify. They might rely on him to testify. Now we get back to Ktsotza. My Ktsotza. Mud in the word. We don't know what it means. A Jew marries a woman that he's not allowed to be married to. It's an illegitimate marriage. He married Psule Kol or Psule Kuhuna. It's a very interesting method of kiruv. You have a man that married Psule Kol. He married a mamzeres. So, I would say let's try to be makarev him. Send him to I don't know, an NCSY seminar or something. But what did they do? They brought a barrel of fruits, and they break it publicly. The Omrim, and they declare, Achenu Beis Yisrael Shimu. I guess that's going to get the attention of the people. When you see someone break publicly in the town square, he breaks a barrel of fruit, and now he has their attention. Shimu Achinu, Ploni Nosa Isha Sheno Genismo. So and so married a woman who's illegitimate. He's not allowed to marry her. And we're afraid that such a person will have a child who's a mamzer, and we won't know about it, and that child is going to intermarry into our family. And there'll be a psul on the entire family. Take a message for all the generations to come. Make sure that you won't marry the offspring of this illegitimate marriage. All right, so what's a ktsatsa? He says here the name of the Maharsha, Miloshan Chisus. Chisus means below his dignity, so to speak. Isha Pchusa. Okay, then, so we'll say Hadron Alecha Isha Shenis Armala, and if it's Hashem tomorrow, we'll begin Elu Naris. Thank you for persevering.